Okay, Sandy, Jules, you can open your eyes to see your new basses!
Wow. I love it!
And that's another episode of Trading Basses. And remember, stay funky.
Hey, no. Can I get this back, please? It's disgusting.
Welcome back to Cory and the Wong Notes. I'm Cory. These are the Wong Notes. Today, we are finally paying homage to the low hertz heroes, the root note rock stars, the lords and ladies of the low end. Today's episode is all about that bass. Consider the bass, be it upright, electric, synthesized? The most central, foundational, impactful instrument in the band. Who else besides the bassist can change the tempo? The harmony? Or even the vibe of the entire room with a single note choice. It's melodic. It's percussive. It's human. You can feel it, even if you don't know it yet. And if you're one of those people who still thinks that 4 strings must be easier to play than 6, think again. While you're strumming away on some inverted chord fragment with tensions only a Jack Russell Terrier can hear, bass players are making tactical, targeted strikes on their notes, a precise, rhythmic assault on every single person in the crowd who isn't moving yet. Bass can drive. Bass can lay back. If your toes tapping, your head's bobbing, or your butt's shaking, there's a pretty good chance a bass player is responsible for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonny T. Speaking of bass players, we have an embarrassment of riches. Not one, but 2 legendary bass players in the house. Victor Wooten's on the show, so stick around. But before we get to that, we got some business from last week to attend to. The results of our very own Wong Notes Battle of the Bands. We formed 5 groups from inside Cory and the Wong Notes. We asked for your votes, we tallied those votes, and today, one of those bands wins a very special prize. Now, I didn't tell you all what the prize was, but the winning band, we are going to record their song on the next Cory and the Wong Notes album. And I have a little extra something.
Watch out.
All right, I'm a collector of classic cinema. So what did I do?
Oh, come on, man. That's a classic.
That's the classic piece of cinema. Double cassette. Double VHS. Still in the wrapping. 2 cassette Titanic. The winner is, drum roll please, Billy Jones, Sammy G, and Jay Webb.
You know why we were gonna win? Because of this. And that's why right there.
That's it.
Still got a VHS player, Sonny?
Yep. Dude, that mug is plugged up and ready to go.
We got a great show. Stick around. 2, 3, 4.
Here, amongst the rolling hills of Edinshire, we assemble 12 amateur bass players to test their time, their taste, and maybe most importantly, their chops. Today we're down to the final 3 on this season of the Great British Bass Off.
Well, bassists, this is it.
It's been so wonderful to get to know you over these last few weeks, but today we are going from 3 basses to 1. In this final challenge, we want you to write something classic. We want to see 8 bars in a funk groove, 116 BPM, all over a G minor 7 chord.
It should be something you're all familiar with. But don't get cocky. We'll be looking for timing, composition, and of course, taste.
On your marks.
Get set.
Bass!
Our bass players now have only 30 minutes remaining to compose their lines.
Annie, you've been such a marvellous contender this season. How are you feeling about the final challenge?
Well, I've never played funk before, so it'll be all new to me.
Bit of beginner's luck then, maybe.
I was hoping to put some, stank on it.
All right, Cory, what are you working on for us?
Well, I got a riff that's totally British.
Bro, I guarantee you I'm gonna be able to fool them if I just throw on a subtle British accent.
Matter of fact, nice little jammy riff from my grandma.
Well, let's hope some of Granny's old licks serve you well.
And last, but certainly not least, Sonny T. What do you have in store for us this time?
Well, you said funk, and I'm from Minneapolis, so I thought I would bring some Minneapolis funk to the UK.
Minneapolis? Which county is that in? Remind me again?
It's where Prince is from.
Ah, well, very British indeed.
Well, we'll certainly be looking forward to a very royal performance from you then.
Yeah, sure.
Hands off basses.
It's time.
All right, bassists, this is it. It's time to find out who will be our champion.
Cory, why don't you start us off?
Cory has prepared an 8-bar groove in G minor, based on one of his grandmother's family bass lines.
It's very funky indeed, and you nailed the requirements. It's a little dated. I'd have liked you to add something a little more modern to freshen things up.
Sonny has prepared a bass line influenced by the classic funk tradition of Minneapolis, home of Prince William.
Oh, hey! Well, I think that speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Oh, I can see the rolling hills of Minneapolis right before my eyes.
Right, Annie, you're up.
This is Annie's first foray into funk bass. She's prepared an ostinato bass line, accented by a number of double stops and a chromatically ascending turnaround.
Right on, sister. And you meant us to believe that's the first time you've played funk?
Oh, that was absolutely marvellous, Annie. The note choice, the left-hand muting.
I think we found our winner.
I think so too. Congratulations, Annie.
Cory, Sonny, well met both of you, but it's clear that neither of you are British.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
is bass jumping.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is an absolute special day for me. One of my favorite musicians in the entire world is here. Victor Wooten, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so honored, Cory. Thank you for having me.
It was so fun to play music together.
You telling me, yes, it was. And I knew it would be. I'm a fan of yours, so I knew it would be a lot of fun.
Oh, well, thank you. That really means a lot. It really means a lot. I've listened to your music since I was a kid, and I don't say that to make you feel old. I say it to let you know that your music has impacted me for the majority of my life.
I appreciate that. And for me, being old is a gift. You know, a lot of people don't make it. So I'm honored to be old.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was a kid, you know, I thought, I'm 56 now, I thought 56 was ancient. You know, so I'm honored to be here, you know, because as we get older, we get things that younger people can't get, which is experience.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we're better than anyone, but you can't buy our experience. You can't download it. There's no app for it, you know, and I'm happy that I have some of that. I've been lucky to get to do a lot, and now I can add playing with you to the list.
Oh, thank you. That is very kind of you. Today's episode is all about bass. I want to get into some things about you and your approach to life and music, and get a little more perspective about your books, which I love.
Thank you.
We'll get there in a second. But I want to start talking about the bass, because the bass is an interesting instrument where there seem to be several schools of approaching how bass gets used.
Sure.
When I was growing up, my favorite bands were Red Hot Chili Peppers, the Flecktones, and Primus.
Wow.
There was an era where that was my three bands.
Yeah.
And DMB. At DMB, Stefan's a little more of a sleeper ace of a bass player. But as far as Flecktones, Primus, Red Hot Chili Peppers, if those are a person's favorite band, their expectation of what a bass player's role in the band is very different than a lot of people who think, oh, the bass is just the thing to play the roots and give a little foundation and the whole notes on the bottom and maybe a little thumping. As somebody who's been kind of an ambassador for high-level musicianship on the bass, how do you try to teach people about what the bass is capable of?
There's a few ways that I share that information. One way to think of the bass is like the foundation of this building that we're in. I'm sure nobody walked in here today and said, wow, this floor is really nice. It's solid. I'm glad it's holding everything up, right? When you're doing your job, you're going to be like Stefan. No one's really going to notice, right? Now, the other three bands, Flecktones, Chili Peppers, right, Les Claypool, we stand out a little bit more. Stefan's doing his job in the back, which is the era before me coming up. That's all they did. So you're talking about, you know, Chuck Rainey, Lee Sklar, James Jamerson, Carol Kay. We just supported the band. Now, as we get a little bit of ability on the bass, we still have to support the band, but we get a chance to take more solos and things like that. But we can't lose our role. If I explain it the way my brother Reggie taught us, music is melody, harmony, and rhythm. And the bass and the drums are the foundation of that rhythm, and they each have different roles. And for the younger bass players coming up, if we learn to do the flashy things on the bass without having that solid foundation, it's like building a roof without the floor and wondering why the roof won't stay up, right? So the foundation has to be there so that you can build up, like you bake a cake before you ice it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So what is the order of operations for a bass player just looking to get from beginner to advanced?
It's easy these days. You listen to the beginning people who played the bass, right? Who were the first people to play the bass? Some of them are still alive, okay? Chuck Rainey, one of my heroes, is older than the electric bass. Okay, the electric bass.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, think about it. He's older than the electric bass.
I never thought of that.
So the pioneer, this is like, for me, living in the days of the Wright brothers. So we can be attached to the very beginning of this instrument. Now the double bass, acoustic bass, goes back further, which is where this came from.
Yeah.
Jamerson played the double bass. Chuck Rainey didn't. He went straight to electric. So this is a new instrument. So it's not hard to find the beginning of where and why and when. and then we're attached to it, and we build from there. And with the internet now, there's never been an easier time. Probably even when you were young, we had to buy records. We had to wait for the band to come to town. Now we push a couple buttons and it's all in our lap, right?
Yeah.
Everything we want to see is right in front of us. But we had to search for it, which was a gift. Because if we wanted to get good, we had to practice. Nowadays, we want to get good, we dial it up on the internet and we want someone to teach us. Different attitude. They both work, but a different attitude. But we're, you know, to get back to your question, you go back to the beginning of who played it first, right? Because even the music of the day is built upon the music of yesterday.
Of course.
And the music of yesterday had simple bass lines, note-wise. But there's a whole history and lesson in every bass part, you know, and some of the simplest parts. You know, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, that bass line. Simple, but there's a whole, you know, at least half a year of college worth that you could study just in that bass line. But in many cases, we're going to learn the Victor Wooten flea solo stuff first.
Yeah.
Before we've learned what we call the basics.
I like that.
Yeah.
What are some exercises that the people that are very technically proficient have the roof? What are some things that they can do to build the foundation?
First, one of the things I do is in a nice way try to point out what the person's gifts are first.
Absolutely.
To make them know that you're on their side. But then you kind of let them know that there's some holes in their game. At my music camps, and I have a group of people, I can tell who's gigging and who's not. I get the guys that want to impress me and play my stuff, which, you know, thank you, that's great. I can't even play it that well, thank you for that. But I say, how many bands are you in? They say, well, none, I just practice. Then I go to this young lady over here who's grooving. How many bands are you in? 3. How old are you? 17. And I look at the first guy. He gets it right away. Oh, right? You got to play bass lines to get in bands. The only band that wants Victor Wooten, I've already got that job. So, you know. So the one thing that I have people do is go back and learn some early, simple bass lines. Play them for minimum 15 minutes. Don't add a thing. Just so you know you can.
Yeah.
And now write me 5 other bass lines similar to that.
Yeah.
Because the art of coming up with great bass lines is almost like the art of being a rhythm guitarist.
Sure.
You see it dying. And when someone like you or Sonny or somebody comes out and it's like, wow. It's like, I didn't even know I was thirsty, but this is quenching my thirst, you know? For me, the best way of teaching anything is through examples.
Yep.
And I point out examples of people who are on everybody's records.
Yeah.
And then I ask the student, why do you think? You know, why is Lee Sklar on over, you know, I forget how many thousands of records, Nathan East, you know, and then, like I said, you know, Chuck Rainey, James Jamerson, Pina Palladino, you know, these guys are working all the time because you don't know them as a soloist. Right? I was telling you earlier, I dug myself into a hole with my first solo record, A Show of Hands.
Yeah.
Which I hoped would be recognized for the musicality of it. But because I did it as a solo record, no other instruments, the bass players took it as a technical record.
Yeah.
And then with the growth of the Flecktones, especially after we lost Howard Levy, when I started taking more solos, all of a sudden I'm a soloist and a technical player. When I grew up, making people dance by playing bass lines.
Yeah.
So if you notice, if anybody follows any of my records, you'll notice every record I pulled back. I pulled back as far as this stuff.
Yep.
More bass lines, making the bass line the part of the song, not the solo.
I will say you do both of those things incredibly well. And I remember as a kid, I was enamored by the technical facility and, oh my gosh, all this stuff on the bass that I had never heard.
Sure.
And that being said, I grew up, my dad is a weather report freak. Jocko was in the car,
yes,
on the CD player,
yeah,
at least twice a week. So I grew up listening to Jocko. I grew up listening to, you know, stuff where it wasn't abnormal for me to hear a bass doing something really technical. But when I first heard your stuff, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that technique is insane. The playing is insane. I can't believe it's on a bass. But then immediately what I latched onto was the creativity. And this is something I don't think you get enough credit for, I'll tell you. I don't think you get enough credit for how creative you've been able to weave the technical, the groove, the bass lines, the solos all together. Because although somebody might watch your version of Amazing Grace and think, oh my gosh, that's so cool on the bass, to recognize how creative you have to be. That song basically on the bass can be done in one key, right? You have to figure, okay, the harmonics and the way that you do that and the way you do this, and then there's certain lines and there's a certain creative way of, okay, how can I take this incredibly beautiful, well-known melody and do something completely unique? Because we've all done a version of Amazing Grace, but all of my friends know yours, and yours is the one that I pull up. Why? Because there's, of course, some really fun musical things that you do, but to me, the creativity of it is the most compelling. You set us up for certain things, it's really melodic, and then all of a sudden, it drops the groove. Okay, now he's just gonna groove a little bit. Nope, he's playing the groove and the melody, and all this, all this extra stuff, and then getting back into reharmonizing the melody with some groove, bringing it back down, and then the tuning thing at the end. I remember just thinking, the playing was amazing, but how did he come up with those ideas? And that's something that I've noticed in a lot of sessions that I've been at, is sometimes people don't leave enough space for creativity in their productions, but also especially in the bass chair. So if somebody feels like they're being handcuffed a little bit, maybe by even themselves in their own mind, what are some ways you think that people can work on opening up their mind and opening up their creativity?
One of the main things that I like to share with people is if we think about what music is, like if I ask you, fill in the blank, Cory, music is?
Art.
Give me another word. Heart?
Love.
What else? Give me one more.
Joy.
Okay, notice you didn't say music is a guitar, music is technique, music is theory, right? Without our instrument in our hands, we go right there. As soon as we pick this up, we forget those words. If that's what music is, that's what we should be playing every time we pick up the instrument. No, before we pick up the instrument, right? That's
deep.
It's deep because it's right in front of our face.
But it's right here.
That's the thing. The most deep things are right in front of our face. It's that simple. That's what we should be playing. That's what we should be teaching. That's what the audience wants to hear. They don't want to hear a technique. Nobody's dancing because the key song's in E flat, right? They're not dancing to the key. They're dancing to a feeling, a groove. They're going to walk home or drive home, leave with a feeling. They won't remember the notes or the techniques of the solo. They'll remember what everything felt like. If I tell you a story, you will remember that story. Not word for word, right? Even if we told the same story, Little Red Riding Hood, you're going to tell the same story with your own words. So people are going to remember your gig how they choose to, but the stories will be the same. So the big story for me on a given night is the whole show. The song or the first set or the second set is another story. It needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it needs to take people somewhere. First set, second set should be a different story, not the same story. Every song is a story. The melody is a story. Your solo is a story. And they should all work independently, but make a bigger story when it's put together. Many people aren't telling stories. They're saying a bunch of random sentences that they've practiced, and the sentences don't line up to tell a story. Like for you and I, we say something that leads to the next sentence, that leads to the next sentence. The great players do that. If you listen to the old players, that's what they do. Willie Weeks, bass solo, since we're talking about bass. Donny Hathaway live, everything is everything.
Yes, exactly.
There's not a better building of a solo, at least a model of how to do it, where every sentence, every phrase leads to the next. If we can learn to do that, you don't have to be as good as you thought you did. Right?
Wow.
For example, Cory, sometimes I'll show people a pile of rocks, a picture of a pile of rocks, and I say, what is that? A pile of rocks. Then I show people a picture of an organized, sculpture with rocks, and they say, what is that? And you see their eyes go, well, that's say, if you look at each individual rock, it's no more beautiful than the pile of rocks. It's how those normal rocks were put together that makes it stand out. So people are trying to get every note right, every tone right, every bow right, and you don't have to, right? Willie Nelson doesn't know but 5 chords, and they're not always beautifully played, but Willie Nelson is in every one of those chords. Like Bob Dylan, can he really sing, right? And the answer is yes, but he wouldn't win The Voice, right? American Got Talent or whatever, he wouldn't win that. But the way he puts it together and the fact that he puts his whole self in everything he sings and plays, right? So we're trying to do it here when nobody wants to hear this. You guys were playing looked like the exact same guitar today.
Yeah.
But you sound like you got your own different voice.
It literally is the same guitar.
Okay, right? But, so then what makes you sound like you and him like him? It's who you are that's coming through, and that's what people pay to see. So in many cases, we're learning an instrument when you should be learning yourself. And then you express yourself through an instrument. And then the realness of you will attach itself to the realness of anyone else, right? And then you've got a fan or a listener for life. That's why you like Jocko. That's why you like the flectones. That's why you like, right? You don't like Jocko because he sounds like someone else. You like Jocko because he sounds like no one else. So even Bruce Lee, a Kung Fu man, said his whole thing about Kung Fu was like a journey to the self. And then you express that in whatever way you choose. You choose the guitar, I choose the bass. But when I come hear you play, I don't want to hear your guitar. I want to hear you.
Your wisdom in this comes out, and the way that you teach is very unique and very appreciated by me. Your books, both of which I absolutely love, The Music Lesson and The Spirit of Music, which is a follow-up.
Right.
It's not a method book in the way that people would expect somebody to say, well, do you want to explain? I want you to explain as much as you want for people to also need to buy the book, because both of them are insane.
Thank you. The idea of the book, especially the first book, is as a young student, it's like me, my character.
Yeah.
It's a young bass player. But I will say this, it's not totally me. I took a lot of people's troubles and put them in my character. A young bass player living in Nashville who's doing everything right, learning all the skills, practicing the techniques, theory, but not getting gigs. Life in general not that good, and what's going on. And he's doing everything to try to figure it out, but one day he opens his eyes in his house and there's a man standing there.
Michael.
And, my character should be afraid someone's in your house, but he's not. So he just says, who are you? And Michael says, I'm your teacher. And he says, well, what can you teach me? And Michael says, nothing. And that's what starts the whole journey, where they learn everything. But you find out nothing is everything. And that's kind of the key. And Isis, one of the characters, starts talking about nothing and the number 0 and space.
Yeah.
Because you don't have something without space. Music allows you to talk about anything without the hang-ups. Through music, I can talk about equality, inequality, religion, sexism, whatever, but I call it music, fairness, And so I wanted to use these books in a way to talk about more stuff through the medium of music, so that people will receive it. Because people will receive music.
Yeah.
Where if I mention about, well, who'd you vote for? I'm already got my guard up of who your answer is going to be, or what religion are you, or how much money you make. Music is not so much like that anymore. I mean, yet, I should say. So I wrote fictional stories with real lessons.
Yes.
The lessons are real, the story's fake.
Yeah.
But I did it as fiction so I don't have to defend it.
I love that. It immediately puts your own guard down, allows you to...
Right. I can say what I want because I didn't say it. The character said it. All right? I didn't say it. Michael said that. But it's like going to watch Star Wars. We don't have to fight over whether Luke is really Darth Vader's son or if there's really a green guy named Yoda. We just enjoy the story. Yeah. So I wanted to do that. But if you go watch any of those movies, the lessons are real.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I wanted to do something like that because students, after coming to my camps, were asking for a book. And for one, I don't want a Wooten method.
Yeah.
I don't want here's how to do it. I'll point you in some directions. But when we learn to talk, you learn the same words I learned, but you know that you can use them how you want.
Yeah.
But we teach music in a way that you got to learn my way first. And then I tell you to go find your own voice. After I taught your voice out of you, I tell you to go find it again. It's so silly and backwards. So I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I wrote a story. But the lessons are in there.
The lesson or the takeaway that I got from the second book was maybe a little bit less about the self and more about the world and how the self can explore the world. Maybe the first book, my interpretation, a little more of exploration of self.
Absolutely.
And then the second one, this is happening and this is how we can use, now that we've found ourselves, this is how we can use that in the world.
Beautiful, beautiful, good, great. You nailed it. The first book, I wanted people to not be afraid of music, make friends with music, and wow, I can do this, I can play.
Yeah.
You know, by giving them tools. Normally we give people notes and a little bit of technique and tell go play. It's like teaching people 12 words and say go speak a language, right? You can't speak with only 12 words. You can't speak music with only 12 notes. So this book gives you 9 other things beside the notes. And that's where we broke music up into 10 parts to make people say, I can do this. This is easy.
Yeah.
Now, why are you going to do it? That's what the second book is more, not how to play, but why to play. And you have to involve other people when you ask any question of why.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Any question, why you want to do anything, right? And this came from my mom. She didn't say it exactly like that, but I'll give you a mom's story. My mom was the most praising parent I've ever seen. She always made you feel good and know who you were. But one day, I can't recall what I had done, but I was proud of myself. It could have been I had practiced for 4 hours, because I've always hated to practice, still do. But it's like, Mom, and I don't know if this was it, but this is a good story. I said, Mom, I practiced 4 hours a day. And she said, well, what's that got to do with me? And I went, whoa, that's right. That's just a selfish endeavor. What, you know? So I took the next long while to look at everything I did in life, everything, to see how it affected anyone else. How could it benefit anyone other than me? From tying my shoes, brushing my teeth, to practicing the bass, right? And I look at it this way because we are as good as we are on our instrument, not only because we practice, but because of the people before us.
Absolutely.
If you mentioned Jocko, if Jocko didn't put in all that hard sweat and all that stuff, you wouldn't even be as good as you are on the guitar.
Absolutely.
So whether they know it or not, what they did affected us. And every other bass player in the world, whether you've heard of Jocko or not, you are affected by the people before you, right? So my mom was making me aware of that you're not doing things just because of you. Nothing, from brushing your teeth to anything else. It affects everyone else. When you can see it, or whether you can see it or not, but when you're aware of that concept, you can be more conscious of everything you do, right? Knowing that every vibration you put out there is bumping off of something else. Like the notes we just played are still vibrating somewhere, right? And knowing that my vibrations will never get taken back, okay? Once it's out there, it's out there. So I want to make sure I'm putting out, at least consciously, with the best effort, to put out the best vibrations possible. So that's what I take away from my mom saying, well, what's that have to do with me? Just because you practiced.
Wow.
Right? So you're good on the guitar, good. So now what? What's that have to do with me? Right?
Yeah.
Are you good at the guitar to show me how bad I am? Is that your real purpose? Because at that point, it's not a good reason to be good at the guitar.
Yeah.
But if you're helping what you are, other people, and for me, Cory, what you're doing for me is reawakening the art and the importance and the gift of rhythm guitar.
Well, thank you.
Everybody wants to solo. But man, the fact that I was telling you earlier that my daughter this morning was so excited. You're going to play with Cory Wong? I'm thinking, Cory Wong plays rhythm guitar. How do you know about him, right? He don't sing, right? He don't dance. He don't But that made me so happy. Made me so happy. So whether you realize it or not, you are helping the next, 10 generations of guitarists.
Yeah.
With what you're doing. So to me, that's a good reason to practice.
I love that. It's a great motivator also to get better, to stay strong, but also to really just feel the weight of impact and influence.
Sure. Yeah, let me add this, Cory. This is what the other part of the Spirit of Music book is talking about. And this is part that will never get talked about. And we don't teach it, and I rarely talk about it in public, is that music, I'll say herself, what we call music needs us, okay? Music needs us. In other words, music, I'll go ahead and say it how I feel it. Music exists. Like you can hear music in your head. I can't hear what you're hearing, but it exists without us. But for music to become physical on earth, it has to vibrate. It can't vibrate without us, right? In religion, they call it the Holy Trinity. You have music, you need two other things, a musician and an instrument. Right? You need a mother and a father for the baby to be born. Okay? So for music to be born on earth, we need you and a guitar. Now you without the guitar, it exists in your head. It's still there. It's still alive. You feel it, everything, but it's not vibrating yet. So now we need an instrument. Whether it's a voice, we still need an instrument. Once it's born, it's vibrating. Music to exist on earth needs us for that. That's going away. That's dying. It's still vibrating, but it's still vibrating, but there's much less of a vibration these days.
Do you feel, which part of the Trinity do you feel is most hurting?
I would say all of it's hurting, but the thing that can change it is us, is the being.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the instrument is just what it is. I don't know that that's hurting so much, but what can change, I don't really know. It could be, I don't know, but what can change it all is us, right? If you think about music, the way I explain it in the book, if you think about live music being 12 inches, right? Let's just signify live music, what we just played, you feel that, right?
Yeah.
Real drummer, real horns, right? 12 inches. Vinyl record might be 8 inches, right? A CD made up of waveforms, let's say is 6 inches. An MP3 is about 1/10 the size of a waveform. So now we got 6 inches, now we're down to 0.6 inches, half an inch. Put that through tiny earbuds or a computer speaker, we might be down to 1/4 of an inch. That 1/4 of an inch is what my kids think is normal. But that 1/4 of an inch is also quantized, so we're not getting all the rhythms. It's pitch corrected, we're not getting all the pitches. It's compressed, we're not getting all the dynamics, right? It's already going from this to this, and that's not even all there. And we think that's normal.
Yeah.
Right? And so where's it going to go from there? Right? So music still exists, the music's still good.
Yeah.
But it's just like food. If it doesn't have the nutrients, doesn't matter what it tastes like. But it's also the fact that fast food costs less than food that's good for you.
Yeah.
Right? I can buy a 2-liter bottle of cola cheaper than I can buy an 8-ounce bottle of water. And we've been convinced that that's normal. We've been convinced that this is normal. So that's why in this book I'm portraying whoever decided this. I've portrayed them as a group of people called phasers that are putting our lives out of phase, right? But it's up to us to remember, especially us that are old enough to remember what it really is. So if you think about what happens at a live concert, people forget their problems.
Yeah.
Right? When you take that rhythm guitar solo, which is unheard of, man, I turn to the guy next to me, smack his hand, high five, and at that time I'm not caring what the color of the skin is, who they pray to, who they voted for. We're just all celebrating your music. Live music does that. This makes me put on my headphones and listen by myself. Right? Remember when we used to buy vinyl and we listen as a group? Now we buy a song.
It was CDs for me, but yes.
Well,
I remember putting it in the boombox.
Okay. Exactly.
Putting it in.
And playing it live. Before we bought I know Sonny can remember when we bought a vinyl, we all sat down together, listened to the whole vinyl. We didn't pick our favorite songs. Front to back, we passed around the cover so we could read every word.
Yeah.
But slowly, now we're down to, I don't even buy your whole, Scott Mulvihill is here, great player. We don't buy the whole record. We buy the song we want and listen to it out of order.
Yeah.
By myself. But I say I heard his whole record, and I haven't yet. So I'd love for us to bring back, I don't know how to say it, because real music is there.
Yeah.
You know, it's great artists out there, but it's not reaching us in its entirety unless we go see it live. And I'd love to find a way of bringing that back. The appreciation, even paying for music.
Yeah. Again. Don't even need to get into the discussion of the value of what that is.
Right.
Of what this is or whatever. And you're right. I think the experience of music, the way we experience it, creates a different visceral response. Like you said, Scott is here. Scott was on tour. You came to our show in Boston.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I watch Scott play the upright bass and sing, it does something to me on the inside that I don't get when I hear it on my headphones.
Right.
Or even when I hear it on a dope stereo at my studio or whatever, it just hits me different.
Exactly.
So I'm seeing the nuances of, I can see when he goes on his upright.
Right.
I can see all four of those fingers, whatever, doing that. And then I see the string hit the fretboard. Hearing Sonny talk about listening to records as a kid. Oh yeah, Prince used to come at the house. There was this he was just telling us about this film soundtrack that Quincy did for, what movie was that? The Pawnbroker. He was showing us, he's like, oh no, pull this up. He's like, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right. Oh, there's a different version. He's like, oh, check this out. This is when we first learned about strings. We sat up until 6 a.m. and just listened to this back to back to back. When he was telling us about that experience, I was thinking, oh my gosh. When my friends and I are thinking about, oh, let's get into string arranging, right? Like, oh, we're just gonna get into string arranging tonight, right? Or if you want to just get into some of that space to kind of inspire, oh, this is how we can weave lines with our guitars and with the horns and the percussion, all of it. I go and I pull up Spotify and it's just, okay, here's this album. Okay, cool, here's this one. It's not just, here's this Quincy record. Let's listen to it. Just listen to the violins. Okay, let's go back. Let's listen to the violas. Let's listen to the low end. Right. All this. There's a different experience and there's a different level of absorption.
Yes.
And I think the same goes with the things going on around us, where pretty much every time I get in a car, if I'm not driving, I'll pull up my phone and, okay, I got some things I got to tend to, or, oh, let me see what's happening in the world, rather than just sitting there and looking around, like when I was a kid. Yeah, we absorb the world in a different way, and it still feels very new.
It is very new. It's very, very new. This technology that we're talking about is very, very new. I mean, when I was young, Star Trek was the only people that had cell phones, and theirs was a flip phone. So now they're outdated, right? When they would do this and beam me up, it was a flip phone. So now, I mean, it's really, really new. The thing is that, and I don't want to be the old guy talking about how it used to be.
Sure, yeah, you don't come across that way. It's
good, I hope not. But I see the separation it's bringing to the world. It's where, we used to get on a car ride or sit in our home and talk to each other. Now everybody's here. Everybody on the subway train is here. Or at the concert, people are watching your concert like this. You're right there playing, but I'm watching it through this thing so I can take it home and post it. That's more important than experiencing you in the moment. Right? So when we can become so distracted, the things that are distracted, or rather the people who are distracted, because people are making these things, they can determine what distracts us. And that's scary. That's scary, very scary. Where it used to be, you lived on the farm, you just send the kids outside, you didn't know what they were doing. They were being creative. You didn't have to worry, but they're playing with a stick, they're playing on top of the hay bales. The mind is creative, and then you grow up to be creative people. This kind of thing doesn't have us grow up to be so creative. Creative in a different way.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And I hate to quantify whether it's good or bad, because I can't see the future. You may find out, oh, this was perfect. But what I see is people who follow rather than think for themselves. I see a lot more of that. And my parents were all about us using this thing.
Yeah.
Making us think. When we thought we had it, they would congratulate us for having it, but then push us to get it more. This is what my mom, who was always, like I said, always praising, until that day she said, well, what's that have to do with me? Okay, you practice. Good, now what? Why are you practicing? And that was my first inkling of not how to play, but why to play.
Mm.
You know?
I think I want to close by asking advice. At the beginning of this, you talked about being somebody who's got a lot of experience and happy to have that experience. When you see this change, this sort of environment, the way that we're doing things now, with your experience, how would you suggest the people in my generation protect their creativity and protect their sense of identity?
A few things. One is, we always tell young musicians to go find your voice. You don't have to find your voice. You have it. You don't sound like anyone else but you. You try to sound like Jocko, you sound like you trying to sound like Jocko. You don't sound like Jocko. The main thing is recognize what makes your voice your voice. And the best voice we have that's most us is our speaking voice. How did you get it? Through practice? Through analyzing other voices and then sitting in a room and practice? No. You got it through speaking your mind. So with musicians, you want to be able to play freely, okay? The way I get most people, I trick most people, especially at Berklee College of Music where I get to teach every month. Sometimes I have to trick these jazz musicians into freeing up by telling them to take the worst solo ever. Yeah, and when they take the worst solo, first just even thinking about it, they get a smile on their face, which is a no-no in jazz, right? So they immediately start smiling, but then their freedom is there. Because there's no model on how to play badly. But we're all trying to follow this model of what we think good is. And it's in this small box, right? But it's when Jocko broadens the box that we look. It's when Hendrix broadens it. It's when Tony Williams broadens. And the people we love are outside of the box, right? But you're born with a fingerprint that's never been here and will never be here again. So you're already not in a box. You're already unique. You have something no one else in the history of humankind ever will have. So you're a gift. But our job, what we're told, is to learn someone else's gift before, and then we got to go back and find this. So this is the proof that you're born special. It means you've got your own voice, you have your own ideas, you have everything the world needs right here. No one tells you that. You have to learn someone else's gift first. So my first thing with people is showing them and having them realize how special they are, not because of what they do, but because they were born. Just because you were born. Out of all the choices at that instant, life chose you. Which means you've already won the biggest contest, the biggest lottery, anything you could ever enter to win, you've already won it. Not because of what you do now, it's because of what's already been done. So now what you do is up to you. And regardless of whether you do anything, you could, like I tell people, you could lounge on your couch for 100 years. No one can take that victory away. There's the proof. No one can take it away. You've already won. You're already special. But what makes it better, and this is what my parents taught us, is we get to choose what to do with our specialness, right? So this is all about how can I express my specialness. And I'm lucky enough, Cory, to have learned this very, very young. It's not about the bass. It's not about, really not about anything. It's just that I get to express who I am, right? And in me expressing who I am, it's going to make you want to express who you are.
I love that.
And so that, for me, is what it's really about. It's what it's really about. And now, I don't know if I could say more than ever, It's just that we still need that awareness that you are enough. Not because of what you do, because of who you are. Right? You're someone's child. Whether they loved you ever or not, you're still there. Something chose you to be born. Right? Now, people of you, we've kind of found who we are and are expressing that. And whether we realize it or not, we are helping the universe. We are helping people. Even if it's just for that 2-hour concert that they get to escape something else, we are helping them. And the more real and in tune we can be with who we are, it's going to attach itself and be attracted to the realness of who someone else is. And they may not even know why they love you, but they will.
The way you're talking about this and the way that you're talking about, when I think about this, I'm thinking about how and where we wrap our identity. And because you're talking in this way, I think you are the perfect person to ask this question to, or for people to hear from you. Some folks wrap their identity in their technical proficiency.
Sure.
And think that it's never going to go away.
Right.
They think, I practice 8 hours a day, and till the time I die, I'm just going to keep getting better, and nothing can take that away from me. And they wrap their entire identity, their entire sense of self, possibly even their own sense of self-worth, to how fast or clean they can play 16th note runs or whatever.
Right.
And don't tie their identity to anything else. For those, I think you know where I'm going with this, for those that think that that will never be taken from them or that that'll never go away, do you have any words of wisdom for those that might?
Sure. Anything you do can be taken away. Anything you do. And if you define yourself by what you do, you're going to struggle. And I saw a lot of my musician friends struggle during the pandemic because we couldn't get out and do what we do. And if you define yourself by what you do, you're lost when you can't do it. But no one can take away who you are. Right? No one can take away your fingerprint.
Yeah.
Right? If you touch something, it's like a barcode in a store. They can tell what item touched it just because of that. That's how special we are. No one can take that away. So when you exist from the core of who you are, not what you do, right? What you do is just a representation or an expression of who you are. No one, no thing can take away who you are. I would even go as far as to say not even death can erase who you really are. Because who you really are existed the same way music exists before it becomes physical. Right? I may make a lot of people mad when I say this. You existed before you became physical also, and will continue to exist. Maybe not in the same form, but, and again, I'm really quoting in my own way my mom and my dad, because they knew what 5 black boys, I'm the youngest of 5 boys, they knew what we were facing in the 50s and 60s, right? They knew that we might be existing in a world that didn't support us. So we had to know who we were. We had to support each other as brothers. So we never fought, we weren't even allowed to argue. We were in a band, right? And a band is, for me, the best thing on earth to show how the world should exist, right? The band is better when all the instruments are different, not the same, right? An orchestra of flutes will sound good, but it's not the same as an orchestra with a bunch of different instruments, right? Before we play, we make agreements, right? Nobody's here to win above everyone else. We don't win unless we all win. Right? We make a ton of agreements before we even play music. The people who listen are here to agree. The people who don't want to agree didn't come. You know, so music is powerful that way. It brings people together. So our parents wanted us to get good at it, right? Because of what it does, right? But it's who we are that we are expressing, right? And once you know who you are, there's nothing that can take that away from you. So you're never lost. But we have to be careful because life is trying to erase who you are. We've heard it over and over. Leave your ego at the door. For everyone at home, look up the word ego, E-G-O. Look it up. You'll find out ego means a sense of self. Ego means knowing who you are. I hired you because of who you are. Anyone plays guitar, but I hired Cory Wong today. Why would you leave Cory Wong at the door? You never want to leave your ego out the door. Now, you don't want an inflated ego. As soon as my self-worth is more important than yours, now there's a problem.
Yeah.
But that's a small part of the ego. But we lump the whole word ego into that, and then people tell you to leave it. So we're not really taught to know who we are. There's very little in society, especially education, that is built upon knowing who you are first, right? Through all of school, you've had to do book reports, you've had to study, you had to interview people. When have you ever done a book report on yourself? When have you ever been told to interview yourself? When have you ever transcribed your own solo? And it's just as good as anyone else, even if you've only been playing 2 years. You never told that. So everything we learn from outside of ourselves is about other people. So we're taught to find ourselves through other people. I'm lucky enough that for me as a kid, it was reversed. You find yourself first and then come talk to me. That's the way my parents did it.
That's beautiful. Amazing. Vic, thanks so much for being here. This is an absolute treat. I have so much to think about. And I got to come to your camp.
Please do. Oh, let's do it. Let's make it.
I want to come to your camp.
Oh, you said it twice, so that means it's on.
I'm there.
Okay. All right.
I'm there. I'm going to be there. Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much. What a treat.
Thank you so much.
This really means a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
A huge thanks to one of our heroes, Victor Wooten, for being with us. Thank you so much. Yeah. What an absolute treat.
Yeah, brother.
Complete legend. What a fun time for us. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.